First off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessors, transmitting masters, and everyone here today to have this opportunity to continue talking about the Six Paramitas. So last week we talked about charity or giving. Okay, so today we're going to continue talking about precepts and discipline. All right. Okay. Just kind of a basic review. Typically, when we talk about precepts, we typically, well, at least in Tao and Buddhism, right, they talk about the 5 basic precepts, which kind of categorized into 3 parts: the relating to the body, to our, our actions, our speech, and also of our minds. So, the first 3 relate to the body of, no killing, no stealing, no sensual misconduct. In the past we said sexual misconduct, but it's sensual, it's a little bit broader, okay, or lust, okay. And then speech, untruthful or false speech, lying, basically. And for the mind, it's basically not taking intoxicant, drinking, alcohol or other drugs that maybe alter the states of mind, which this influences. Obviously, it influences our thinking. So these are very basic, and it doesn't cover everything. Okay, so these are you can say they're kind of specific precepts, but very basic set. But there's more to just precepts, to these precepts. Okay, it's not just these precepts, what I'm saying. There are other precepts, like even, today, this is pretty much today we talk about these, and then there's like the 10 goodwill measures. Okay, so just a little more of an expansion on these. But in the past, like the monks, they actually had a lot more, dozens of precepts that they have to practice or observe. Okay. And then you can kind of broaden it to be a little bit more general, right? Where it's really talking about discipline of our, body, our actions, of our speech, and also of our mind, the internal side. Okay. Now, just like charity, precepts are also a universal practice in all religious traditions. Okay. So they all talk about doing charity and also talk about having precepts. They might call it commandments, like, for example, in Christianity, right, the 10 Commandments, which actually include, 4 of these precepts. Basically the first 4 of them. Okay, so, they don't cover everything, but, it kind of covers our basic behavior, if you will, right? Okay, whoops. Sorry. And then so, the 10 wholesome deeds are kind of an expansion on that, which it includes those 5. Basically, they expand on the speech aspect, where it's, not just the lying, but there's also, you can say other things that harm other people: slander, divisive speech, harsh or abusive speech, and gossip or unrealistic speech. Okay, so in general, it's not harmful speech. Okay, so it's kind of a little bit more generalized from the 5 basic precepts of the mind. Then it also talks about not having envy or jealousy, having bad ill will, malicious intents, and also false views. Okay, so this kind of covers a little bit more things. And actually, so practicing. So when we say practicing the precepts, it's not just the 5. Okay, so it includes all of these other things as well. So also again, another, you can say, a generalization. There's the 4 proper conducts relating to the body. So we observe the precepts of the body. So just like what we said earlier, killing, stealing, lust, that kind of thing. observe the precepts of speech, eliminate the 3 poisons. Okay, so this is a little bit more specific about the mind. 3 poisons are greed, right? Anger or resentment, rage, that kind of thing, and also ignorance or delusion, stubbornness, that kind of stuff. Okay, so those type 3 categories, if you will, the mind. Now, the 3 poisons, very important. We keep talking about the Buddhas. They say, you have to get rid of the 3 poisons in order to not basically fall into the path of the hell, the underworld. Because these are so in our cultivation, we have to get rid of these. And precepts will address at least the greed aspect. Okay. Let's see. Because in general, we say the 3 poisons are kind of addressed by precepts, concentration, and wisdom. Okay, so which are these 3 are all part of the 6 Paramitas, right? So if we can practice all the 6 Paramitas, then hopefully we can get rid of all the 3 poisons from our mind, right? And then so the actions, which are other actions besides the precepts of the body, these actions. For example, the 3 pillars, okay, they relate to the 3, you can say 3 primary relationships, human relationships, like between, so like a ruler and a subjects, the relationships between husband and wife, and also between parents and children, okay. The Confucius talks in more detail about those, about how we should relate to other people in these different relationships. And then the 5 constants, of course, are 5. Also, Confucius talks about the 5 basic, you can say basic or fundamental virtues. We call them virtues as well. Basically, benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and faith, or really, sincerity. Okay. And then 8 virtues, which is expansion of that, which also includes like filial piety, right? So this is again relationship between children and the parents, brotherhood, loyalty, trust and trustworthiness. Okay, propriety, righteousness, integrity, and sense of shame. All right. So then there are others. Okay, so these are all anything that kind of regulates our conduct in any way, we can kind of put under this category of what we call precepts or discipline. Then there are other things like these are more general, and then more specific to like the temple, right? There are also temple rules and regulations, and also proprieties within the temple. So those are also fall under this category of precepts and discipline. So in the practice, there's a lot. Depending on where, the situation where you are, then there might be certain precepts that are applicable there. Okay. All right. So the chief examiner of the 3 realms, says, right. So the precepts are, or one of the functions or the purposes of observing the precepts is to overcome disorderly or even destructive and also criminal tendencies that humans tend to have. So this is, obviously you can say, where did these tendencies come from? It's a lot of it comes from the environment as well. Okay, so now originally the humans are should be very pure, okay, and innocent. It's just that once we develop that ego, we develop attachments, and desires, then it leads to all these things that of which then cultivation is to kind of reverse all that, to get rid of all that those things, you can say not unwholesome qualities that we picked up, okay, that we developed, right? So, all right, and then it says this is to reform excessive and depraved behavior. Depraved it could also be like licentious or lewd behavior, whatever. But also excessive behavior. So sometimes we, go too far in doing or wanting things. So this is also trying to correct that, change our behavior, change our conduct. And not just conduct, but also within our mind, our views as well. Okay, so it is basically a way to instill discipline, right? Because we have to have a certain amount of discipline. Discipline, you can say, is kind of self-restraint, right? To not so that I just do whatever I want according to my desires and wishes, and what feels good to me, then that's not, that leads to all sorts of things that, could be sins, definitely, karma, bad karma, things like that. So we definitely need to be under control, right? We can't just do whatever we want. All right, so then he goes further to say, it's, the precepts of discipline, it's to be able to maintain the Buddha concentration. Okay, so that's to be able to achieve that level of concentration, like Buddhas, they have this concentration of mind, which for us, it's probably, we say, that's like very difficult to achieve, but we can achieve it through, we have to have discipline, okay, and this practice, observe the precepts to get there. Learn and practice the Buddha manner, okay, so manner of a Buddha, their demeanor, behavior, conduct, to vanquish the Six Thieves, okay, the Six Thieves are sense portals, so we're familiar with 5, all right, sense of sight, sense of hearing, sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of touch. Okay, those are you can say the physical senses. Then in Buddha talks about also, considers the mind or the conscious mind as being the sixth sense portal. Okay, and so it's those 6. And not, obviously the everything, ends up in our mind in terms of, going through these other senses, the physical senses, right? What I see, obviously the eyes don't make any kind of determination about what we're seeing. It's ultimately happening in our conscious mind. And so, but this is kind of a way that they talk about it. But ultimately, we have to make sure that we are in control of our mind so that we are not pursuing, if I see something I like and I want it, that generates, well, first of all, that like, where did that come from, right? There's attachment that was developed, and then it develops from there. It leads to having a desire, a want, which can then lead to further action to get what I want, right? So these things, we have to make sure that we don't, take that too far and end up stealing, right? You might steal something that you really want. So that's, we have to get that under control. So, all right. So, and cut off evil and simple wrongdoings. Okay. So precepts and discipline obviously can help us do that. Now you can say, precepts, I guess more specifically, can lead to more discipline. So I kind of put these two together. I say, precepts generally, I'll say, is kind of the external side of things, this external aspect of the practice, and then the discipline, I would say, is kind of, is the internal. So by using the external practice of observing these precepts, then we instill that internal discipline so that we don't do these things now. And then ultimately, of course, I always say this, that, it has to become natural. It becomes natural, right? And it's not forced, because that's really the Tao. The Tao is natural. Okay. So, and the Tao is not really about the external stuff. It's about the internal, what's in our heart and mind, right? Okay. So, and he says, the essence of Tao is without form, right? To cultivate Tao is, okay. So, so obviously this Tao has no form. And so, so it's really the most important thing is that Buddha nature, that essence within us. Okay. And that's really what is, you can say maybe should be in charge. Okay. Should be in control of things. And not the other way around, where we're being controlled, or manipulated, whatever, by the external, by the forms. Okay. All right. So, to cultivate Tao is to maintain the Bodhi mind. Okay. So that's the mind of wisdom, the mind of a Buddha. And so, so that's what we're trying to achieve. Not, get rid of this human conscious mind, which is full of biases, prejudices, attachments, desires, all those things. Okay, which are not you can say that's not the Tao. Okay, that's not the Bodhi mind. All right, to practice the Bodhisattva path. Okay, so we want to achieve Buddhahood, to uphold the precepts. Right, so this is all part of cultivation. Right, to observe the self nature, our true nature, our essence. Okay, so this is again. So these are all, you can say this is all the formless aspect. Has no form. Okay. So, and to liberate our consciousness, our conscious mind, okay, from those, the wrong views, attachments, etc. Right. To maintain that Buddha mind concentration, right? To maintain the 4 awe-inspiring postures. Okay. So this is kind of maybe a little bit more external, or has, the 4 postures, right? Basically when we're walking, when we're standing, when we're sitting, and when we're reclining or lying down. Walking, we should walk. We should walk very, just like in a very normal. I don't know how to say normal way, but just a dignified way. Basically, we shouldn't be walking around like kind of with a swagger, whatever kind of silly walk. But we should walk, with kind of a respectfully. Okay. So, and then standing as well, not leaning to one side or whatever, just stand straight. When we're sitting, you shouldn't be slouching, right? We should be sitting upright. And, it's kind of like, they say it's like when we sit, we should be like one of those, a bell, right? Those big bells. It's like very, very steady, very firm, very solid, when we're sitting there. And then reclining, again. But these are like kind of just, postures that, to show, it's not, that we're not like completely just, anything goes, however we want to do things. Okay. Because, when people look at us, when they see us when we're walking, standing, sitting, or reclining, they can tell if, this person, perhaps, they don't have virtue or whatever. Okay. So, to obey temple rules and proprieties. Okay, so cultivation, right, includes that. Those are kind of part of these disciplines and precepts. To keep the self nature to pure and calm. Okay, so to keep ourselves always in this tranquil, calm state, pure state. That's then, we wouldn't end up doing stuff that, we shouldn't do. To keep the 6 roots pure, right? The 6 portals, right? Pure and calm, to vanquish 6 thieves and turn them into the 6 protectors of the mind and self-nature. So, yeah, we have to transform them. This is basically saying transforming those consciousness. Yeah, in Buddhism, they talk about these senses as having like a consciousness, although it's all in our mind. Okay, it's not part of the sense itself, but it's within our mind. But the turning those into wisdom, right? So when we turn those into wisdom, then they will be protectors of our mind and our true nature. Right? To cut off evil thoughts and lust. Okay. To get rid of the human and flesh hearts. The human. Okay. So generally we talk about like the 3 hearts or 3 mind. The terminology I think is 3 hearts we use. Basically, we say the Tao heart. Okay, so that's like the pure heart of like the Buddha nature. Okay, then the human heart is one that it can be good and bad, good and evil. Okay, so and then the flesh heart is it is basically the heart of it's basically kind of instinctive. Okay, so just dealing with trying to satisfy the body, the physical self. Okay, so that's at the base level, a very low level, and you could say like animals are more like that. So have that kind of a nature. But humans, can be like that too, so that's why we have to get rid of that aspect. The human are, it can be, it's kind of the more rational, but I mean, it can choose to be good or take the other path of evil. So we have to kind of get rid of that as well, and always be, in essence, like a saint, or our conscience is always at the forefront of our thoughts, of our mind. Okay, to examine the heart, to look within. Okay, to see, understand our heart and mind, to return to the original pure and calm Tao Buddha heart. Right, so. That is what we're trying to achieve. And again, precepts or all cultivation is to try to help us achieve that. Okay. Oops. Okay. So holy teacher. Okay. So he says, as long as one can persevere, one can listen to the class until the end, no matter how tired. Okay. So holy teacher in this channeling session, is in a class, and he's talking about, the class members, right? They can persevere and, listen to the class until the end, even though they might be very tired. Okay. So as long as one is steadfast, one can propagate Tao all over, regardless of any tests that we encounter. Okay, so again, looking at the qualities that we have, perseverance, that we need to be steadfast, very, firm or steady. Okay, in the face of any kind of turbulence or tests in this case. Okay, so and as long as one has conviction, right? So basically, you can say like faith or confidence, very strong faith and confidence. Okay, one can take control of one's vows, no matter how difficult. Taking control. Well, basically, the vows that we make, sometimes it might seem, wow, it's kind of, it's a very grand, big vow. It's like, wow, how do I achieve that? We have to have that faith, that confidence, that conviction that, yes, no matter what, I can do it, no matter how difficult it might be. But again, getting to vows, that's something else. But but at least, so we have to have this quality, this of conviction, okay, to be able to do something. Okay. And as long as one is resolute, or you say determined, right, one can rein in the heart and mind regardless of changes that occur around us. Okay, so reining in, we have to, again, keep control of our mind. Don't let it go wild. Don't let it, just because I see something that I really like, then it causes me to then do something I shouldn't do to try to get it. Okay, so again, we have to be very determined. So again, these kind of 4 qualities, if we will. Now, Holy Teacher, he asks us, if we can take control of our heart and mind, while we're cultivating on this road of this, this road of cultivation, right? This path of cultivation that we're on, that we need to be able to take control of our heart and mind. Okay, and Holy Teacher says that what he sees is that disciples, his disciples, which is us, we are cultivators, that we might be able to control our heart and mind for maybe an instant, or maybe even a day, or a year. But, actually he's saying that, we need to be able to be in control 24/7. Okay, so not deviating from our Buddha nature, right, all the time. So that's why you can basically, we start with precepts. Okay, so starting with, from having no kind of precepts, right, where we can, we're not fully in control. We're not in control of our heart and mind. Okay, then we add the precepts into our cultivation to help us to bring it under control. Okay, but ultimately, we should always be in control, or you could say the Buddha nature or our conscience should always be in control. That Tao heart, right, should always be in control 24/7. If that's the case, then basically we're going to be like a Buddha, right? We're not going to commit any sins. We're not going to commit any karma, create any karma. Okay, and that's really the goal, right? So obviously, this is it's not going to be just taking a few steps and then we're there. This is a lifetime, process, and maybe multiple lifetimes. I mean, we may not be able to achieve this completely in one lifetime. Okay. All right. So Holy Teacher says, so he's remarking on, so he says, is wearing a white shirt a display of the individual, or does it represent unity? Right? Is performing the temple rituals a display of extravagance or pomp, or does it represent propriety? Right? Is wearing a ceremonial robe, in this case talking about like transmitters, the display of heaven's mandate, or does it represent this Tao energy, I don't know how else to say that, Tao energy, Tao atmosphere there, is taking on the mission and duties a display of work, or does it represent cultivation? Right, so what Holy Teacher is trying to say here is that, sometimes we just see, on the surface, or the external aspect, it's just, all we see is just it's a white shirt, the person's wearing the white shirt, or we see the rituals, they say, that's a lot of fanfare, a lot of stuff. But there's kind of a deeper, you can say the deeper meaning, the internal meaning, right? So, right, everyone wears a white shirt in the temple, and that shows unity among everyone. The propriety or the rituals that we perform in the temple, it's not just for show. There is a propriety there. Okay. The robe, again, it's not just to show that, this is a transmitter because they're wearing the robe, right? It's to, show that or to kind of give this sense of this Tao energy. And then, our missions, our duties, right? It's not just work. It represents really, our cultivation. Okay. So the external, he's saying really that the external stuff that we see is kind of empty, whereas the internal is true and has true meaning, real meaning, and value. Okay, so we should look beyond just the surface, all right, of things, especially when it comes to the Tao. Because if you look at the surface of the Tao, you're not going to see anything because has no form. Okay, so you really have to look and see what's the formless thing. All right, so but for everything else that we see the form, but the Tao is not at the surface; it's within it, and so we have to see look beneath the surface to see the Tao that's there. All right. Okay. So now the Holy Teacher also says the biggest discrepancy in the white era, right? So that's the time period that we're in now, is the lack of balance between you can say the internal saintly virtues and the external noble manners. This is a kind of a translation from the Chinese Nei Shen Wai Wang. Okay, so basically, we need to be both, you can say, beautiful or complete on the inside and on the outside, right? The inside are our virtues, and the external is our actions, our manners. Okay, so it's kind of the combination of the two. Now, sometimes we hear during this white era, because this is also, part of that mission is the universal salvation. Okay, so trying to save the good all souls. Okay, okay. I mean, obviously we can't save everyone. Actually, we can only save those who are willing to be saved. Right, but still, we try to save people, but on the other hand, we also we cannot neglect cultivating our virtues that are inside, cultivating and try to really truly understand our essence, our true nature, our Buddha nature. Okay, so that's an important aspect. So we cannot just do one or the other. We do both, and so it's basically both in harmony, right? Holy Teacher says, seeing the many Tao fields or Tao communities, Tao societies, right? They seem real, okay, but do his disciples have a solid internal foundation? Okay, so he asks, because he sees that, again, people are performing stuff on external merits, okay, doing a lot of things there, but internally, many disciples are not really cultivating internally, getting rid of their bad temper, correcting their faults, okay, things like that, and nurturing the virtues, okay. He says, he sees there are many Tao temples, but are disciples just cultivating external merits while being empty of virtues internally? So the point that he's making is, yes, that we need to also focus on the inside. The inside is at least as important, if not more important, than the external merit side. Okay, I mean, as we talked about in past classes, that merits are important. They one function is that they can pay off our karmic debts, right? Eliminate or prevent the karmic retribution from happening. Okay, so and that is definitely needed. We do need to do that, but at the same time, the internal is kind of the foundation, really. If you don't have the proper foundation, if we don't succeed in we don't succeed in cultivating in this lifetime, we're going to have to come back, okay, and in a future lifetime. And without that internal foundation, we're likely to fall into the abyss, okay, and go down the wrong path and not cultivate in a future lifetime. So again, that foundation, which is the internal, is very important. Okay. Okay. So, So speaking of that internal, so we look at the precepts again as kind of dealing with the outside, but the internally they correspond to the internal, those 5 constants, right? So, like the no killing, corresponds to benevolence, and no stealing, corresponds to righteousness. The no sensual misconduct corresponds to propriety. The untruthful or false speech corresponds to, faith or truthfulness or sincerity, right? No intoxicants corresponds to wisdom. So, if we only know about the external, the precepts, without really understanding where it comes from or why, these precepts exist, we say, oh, just no killing. I mean, it's just basically someone is telling us that, oh, you can't do these things, without really, if we don't truly understand them, then it could become harder to observe or practice these precepts, continuously, okay, without, wavering at some point and say, why should I not engage in, this conduct that says here I can't do, so we have to truly understand, and it comes from within. Okay, so ultimately the precepts, these are external, but if we understand the internal aspect, or you can say the source of it, then okay, so then I know it. Oh, there's this propriety within that. Yeah, I shouldn't do these things. It's so it should really when it comes from within, then it becomes it's more natural, right? It's not like someone is forcing us to, practice some precepts. Okay. Okay. All right. So Holy Teacher says, okay, so when thoughts are confused, one must take precepts as teacher. Okay, as their teacher. When intentions are evil, one must take precepts as the teacher. All right. So if our thoughts are, they're all over the place. They can be confused. Really confused usually means from a Buddha's point of view means that we have false views. We have the wrong views. We have the wrong thoughts. Okay, so and so we use precepts to kind of restrain ourselves, restrain our thoughts, restrain our intentions to make sure that we don't then, commit evil or we think about things that we shouldn't, right? So that's so again, so that's why precepts are important here. Disciples must be vigilant of their body or actions, right? Do not enter into heretical sects or deviant paths. Okay, so here he's talking as one of the actions is not to go into these other, you can say, practices, I guess, or methods, heretical sects. I mean, basically anything that's deviates from the true path. Okay, so from the path of Tao, if we're seeking special abilities, right, special type of special powers, supernatural powers, things like that. That's what this heretical sect is, or deviant path is. But we shouldn't be seeking those things. Okay. So this again, we have to kind of keep be in control, not follow these things that might be enticing, right? Might be, they can teach. Someone can teach me. Some master can teach me how to, turn stones into gold, right? Wow, it's like, hey, I'll be rich, right? So that's a deviant path. Okay, so we should avoid that. Disciples must be vigilant of their mouth, or really speech, right? Do not let it spread gossip and rumors. Okay, we have to be very careful. A lot of times, where maybe we're not, or maybe because we're used to, when we talk about stuff, we talk about people, talk about things, and We tend to kind of maybe go a little bit too far, and talk or have, just talk about things in a way about people that, is not really useful. Okay. Not really helpful to anyone. Okay. We're, basically spreading rumors about people, or, I heard this about this person. And it may be true. But, maybe it's not. But even if it was true, if it's not something that's good, we should not spread that, spread that to let other people know about that. There's a thing that we try to, kind of praise people for their good attributes. But if they have, some part, obviously they're not perfect. So areas where they have faults, we don't want to talk about those. I mean, at least not to other people. We should, if we want, we can talk to them directly and, kind of point it out in a way, and to try to encourage them to, either, to try to change that or, focus more on their good, attributes, right? Okay, so disciples must be vigilant of their intent or thoughts, right? Do not create trouble with our thoughts, right? Ultimately, if our thoughts go wild, not even wild. I mean, we may not think it's wild. I mean, it's like, well, someone is thinking, yeah, they really like the taste of that meat or that steak or whatever. It's like they want it, right? So there's thoughts. But that, it's creating trouble. It's going to create trouble. Or I really want something and I want to go out, get it, right? So again, there's the actions, the body, the speech, and also the thoughts that we have to be in control of. Let me see. Okay. So here, yeah. I mean, Holy Teacher says, all right. So we have to use precepts as a teacher. So this is. When Buddha, when he was just before he was going to enter parinirvana, which means, leaving this world, basically, Ananda asked him, who once you leave us, who's going to be our teacher, right? And so Buddha says, follow the precepts, use the precepts as your teacher. Okay, so now, Holy Teacher are basically our 18th patriarch. Okay, he did say that, but really he also says that we really want to become aware or awaken and enlightened. Okay, basically to really understand. So back then, right, the Buddha's time, yes, precepts, for most people, for most lay people, even a lot of the monks, the practitioners, it's very simple. They don't really necessarily have a truly deep understanding of the true nature. Okay. So they just know we follow the precepts. Okay. These are the rules. We follow those. Right. But now, during this time, this cultivation and this time, we not only do that, but we also have to really understand, really truly realize, and be, enlightened, to our Buddha nature, to the true nature. Okay. So that is, we have to get to the deep meaning, the profound meaning and realization that is, below the surface, right? So the Holy Teacher also did tell us that, right? So there's the study of the Buddha nature, that we need to study our Buddha nature. I mean, to truly understand it, to become ultimately so that we can become one with our Buddha nature. Okay. So that is really the only ultimately the only way to prevent, for us to really become a Buddha, right, and to prevent us from committing sins and creating karma. Okay. So, but again, so precepts, it's a tool. Okay, it's a tool, but it's kind of as a tool, then it's a little bit more superficial, surface only. But we have to look underneath and see what the true meaning is. Okay. Okay. So he gets into the formal scripture here. So it says prudence, or you can say discreetness, discretion, right, keeps the gain experience upright. Reason and rationality makes the principle proper. Okay, so the gain experience. This is kind of maybe an awkward way of saying that, but anything that we do. Okay, so if we do things carefully, right, and we don't commit any, break any of these precepts or commit any of those sins or karma when we're doing things, then that experience will be, proper, will be upright. Okay, so sometimes we say, we see something, especially if we intentionally see something or we hear something or intentionally do something, and it's like, I can't unsee it, right? It's like once you see it, it's etched it's in our memory, okay, and we can't get rid of it. Okay, so we have to be careful what we see. So Holy Teacher, even in Dharma class, has a few times has mentioned, like pornography, things like that, right? So we should be careful. We shouldn't, watch those things, right? So and it's true. It's like anything that we see, maybe we hear, have heard something, or we read something, or whatever, and that maybe we shouldn't have, and even, we just can't get rid of it. We can't forget it. Okay. So that's always in our mind. And then, of course, it gets stored in our eighth consciousness, our alaya consciousness. That's the field of karma. Okay. So that is where a seed of karma is planted. And, if we're not careful, whether later in this life or in a future life, if the conditions are right, it's gonna grow and bear fruit. There will be some karmic consequence, and so that's why we have to be very careful, right? Let's see, right? So the principles, again, it's not like these are kind of random, right? There's very rationality. There's reason behind the principles. Okay, so and so obviously, so if we understand the reason, the rationale behind these things, then we'll be better off. Okay, so precepts, discipline. Okay, as a verb here, discipline our consciousness, proprieties, refined our disposition. Okay, so right. So again, this is now using the precepts to discipline our mind. Okay, so it's not just the external, the body, right? Ultimately, everything is basically relates to the mind. Okay, so even if the stuff that's external to the body, like actions and speech, right? Of course, they all originate in the mind. So and then observing, the proprieties, then that kind of refines our disposition, right? So, disposition is kind of like, what is that? That's like our manner. Proprieties, they include like etiquette, right? Manners, things like that, all right? And then, so it is proper to uphold the principles of human relationships and virtues. It is proper to know how to apply the Buddha nature. Okay, so basically, again, the principles of the human relationship, those 5 relationships that we talk about, and also the 5 constant virtues. Okay, so and then it's right, and then so we know how to apply our Buddha nature in basically in our everyday life. Okay, so And this is called the second paramita of cultivation, right? Is the basis of reform. So the precepts help us to, let's say, maybe break some bad habits or break some of our false views. Okay, so we reform, of course, means change, correction, right? Because we all, every one of us, we're human still, that we do things, say things, or think things that, that's not proper. And so this aspect of cultivation helps us to correct that. Okay, make those corrections. Now, so the first word or character for each of these, right? So it's basically saying that, we maintain the precepts, right? And to hold on to the Tao, or the way of the Tao, or the Tao cultivation. Okay, so the precepts basically are very important in maintaining or, cultivating Tao, right? I want to comment here that a lot of people, especially from the West, right? They view Tao principle of like Wu Wei, right? They as being free to do or not to do whatever they want, right? It's very casual and unrestrained. But the truth is that the discipline is a must. Okay, so Buddhas and saints, for example, we talked about the 7 Taoist masters, right? They look like they're very unrestrained, or right? So they go around as like a beggar, and in a very they're very free, right? Liberated from everything. Now they can be, right? So I mean, they are, but they can be like that because they're also practicing discipline. Okay, and so we tend to think of discipline kind of as a very kind of, or precepts as kind of something rigid. Okay, but it's not. These are like, you can say they're like principles. Okay, the principles, yes, the principles don't change, right? You can't break the principles, but you might say that you can bend it in the sense that when you're applying the principles, that there's flexibility when you apply it. Okay, so that's why they're not rigid in that sense. Okay, and also not restrictive. I mean, we tend to think, this restricts me from doing certain things or whatever. Again, it's because we have this wrong view, or the wrong view of things, that or this false view of things that we think that. Okay, so if we understand, or if we know the true reality of things, if we know the truth, then we'll realize that that other way of thinking is wrong. It's like this, and actually the precepts. There is no need for precepts. I mean, it comes from within, like I was saying earlier, that when we have understanding of the truth, then everything is coming from within, and so there's nothing. It's not restrictive. Okay, it's natural. Now, okay, and then now Holy Teacher also so during this class, right? So Holy Teacher, before he composed the rest of the scripture, he asked the class members to, basically they took the fruits down from the altar and gave it to all the class members. And he says, all right, the 3 things. He says, you should eat the fruit while Holy Teacher is composing the scripture. And when you eat it, you eat the outside first, the peel, and then eat the inside. Okay. And, he says to eat the fruit completely, right? Cleanly. He says completely, leaving only the core of the heart. Okay, so you can think about what Holy Teacher's means here. Okay, but okay. Let's see. Right. Okay. And we'll come back to that. All right. All right, so then it goes into the rest of the scripture. It says, okay, so precepts is the beginning of purifying thoughts and regulating the self, right? Okay, so that's what so So basically from completely undisciplined, unrestrained lifestyle, let's say, then when we apply the precepts, that's the beginning of where we can start to purify our thoughts and regulate our actions. Okay. Precepts is the only specific way of controlling thoughts and diminishing desires. Right. So remember the precepts, right, is something that is used to overcome greed, right? So the desires. And so having these precepts then is the way to kind of control that. And eventually, ultimately to get rid of those desires. Precepts is the standard of the simple and honest forms of walking, standing, sitting, and reclining, right? The 4 awe-inspiring postures. So precepts kind of, although, we don't specifically, but you can say, in the way that we conduct ourselves in these 4 postures, it's not completely, anything goes, right? So we have to conduct ourselves properly. Okay. Precepts is the origin of eating pure and plain vegan food and vegan food and not creating karma while protecting life. Okay. So again, precepts, because, right, the no killing of the 5 precepts, right, is, so that means that we would eat pure food, which is, basically vegan food. Okay. And we're not creating karma, and we're saving lives or protecting life. Okay. Not killing the animals. Right. So, again, this is very important. The origin or the root, I guess you could say. Okay. Precepts is the conviction of holding to the marvelous way of Tao and eliminating the 3 poisons. Right. So again, it helps us to have that faith, strong faith or, confidence to be able to cultivate on this path of Tao and eliminating and in being able to eliminate those 3 poisons. All right. Precepts is the dignity of being straight, not crooked, and correcting evil into proper. Okay. So again, it helps us to correct our maybe deviant, improper behavior, evil conduct, whatnot, into what's should be, something proper. Okay. Precepts is the experience of going from complex to simple and from existence to emptiness. Now, so basically, you can say having some of these precepts, these rules, regulations, kind of keeps things simple. Makes things a little bit more simple for us, and also the second half of this, going from existence to emptiness, basically, having forms, right? So going from the forms, we see the forms of things, to going into the non-form or the formless, which is really the Tao. Okay, so we are too kind of focused and attached to the forms, the phenomena. Okay. But that is not really the Tao. Okay. So we have to, basically, through practicing the precepts, and cultivation, that to kind of wean ourselves off of that attachment to the forms and get into the truth or the true nature, which is the formless, right? Precepts is the backbone, with regard to the quality of cultivation and authenticity of the skills, right? So again, when we practice the precepts, that helps us to cultivate, better, right? And really see if we really have to develop those skills, true skills of cultivation. Okay. So, a lot of these are, again, you can say a lot of the nuances that Holy Teacher is kind of pointing out, just like with charity, that we want to get into the true meaning, the deep meaning behind, what seems kind of, very basic, simple, easy concept or topic, which is precepts, but there's a lot more to it. Right? Precepts is the the prerequisite for ordinary people to become calm and to harbor a broad and saintly heart. Right. So if you look at, for most people, again, they're kind of unrestrained, right? So if you look at the mob scene, right, the mob that kind of starts going to, committing violence and all that, they're not calm. And so precepts are needed to make sure people can be calm, okay? They don't get riled up. And to be able to harbor this, you can say, just a saintly heart, a compassionate heart, and all that, right? A virtuous nature. Okay. So precepts is the clarity of the heart and mind that is not moved or tempted by wealth. Right. So we have to be. I don't know if clarity is. Anyways, this. When we see wealth, it's like, oh wow, a person just won this $100 million lottery. It's like, wow, I wish I had, or, we see, money lying around on the floor, on the ground. It's like, wow, a bag of money just fell off the truck. Then we start getting greedy. Say, hey, I should just take that. No one's watching. I'll take it home and keep it for myself, right? So we shouldn't be moved by any of these temptations, okay? So the precepts help instill that. Maybe initially we don't, we're going to fall for temptation and greed, but the precepts, so this is, again, it's a gradual process. To get us to the point where internally we will not generate that, be tempted. We will not have that desire or greed. Okay. Precepts is the clear view of normal feelings and clear distinction between male and female. Okay. So maybe this is kind of referring to, one of the three distinctions that we have in the temple, right? That those are, you can say that those are also precepts, there's the space or the boundaries between male, and then males have their boundaries and females. And so there's not the mixing of the two. And so, so that's, makes that clear. Precepts is the completeness of grasping the sense of temple rules and proprieties. Okay. So, again, so the precepts, in fact, because they actually, include these things. And to truly, if we dive into the precept to understand, the meaning of these. Okay. So precepts is the reformation of restraining the forms and liberating the formless. Right. So, right on the surface, precepts, they restrain us from the physical, the external, the forms, things like that. But ultimately, it's liberating the formless within us, the Buddha nature. Okay. So then we are really, in that sense, that we truly be liberated and free, okay, and unrestrained, actually, when it's just the Buddha nature, when we don't have these forms. We actually think that, we're kind of being restrained from the forms, but actually, once we get rid of the forms, we are truly unrestrained, okay. Precepts is the peace, which one can demand of oneself and become at ease. So, we are at peace, even though we are kind of, you can say the precepts kind of, we're demanding of ourselves to be, to not do certain things or to control ourselves. But at the same time, then we can become at ease and free, truly free, liberated, okay, as a result of that. Precepts is the level at which beginners can enter the Tao and experienced cultivators can enter Samadhi. Okay, so there's kind of like different levels. Precepts, right, can be practiced at different levels, right? The beginners, they can do some basic precepts, like the 5 precepts. And then the more advanced cultivators, they have they can have other more higher level practice precepts to enter samadhi. That's like the concentrated mind of the Buddha. Okay. So again, it's the precepts. Again, it's not like one level. It's at any level. Okay. And then precepts is the affinity from the inner to the outer and from the shallow to the deep. Okay. So again, it's relating to this, the levels, there are different, levels of affinity. Okay. So some people, maybe they can only do they might have just the basic affinity, which means they only perform, or practice the very basic precepts. Whereas those who have maybe a deeper affinity, maybe from past life, affinity where they've practiced already a lot of these things where, that they can, go into more deeper or more advanced, practice of precepts. Okay. And also, it's also, so the idea here is also that, again, just like with the different levels, it's very natural. So it's not like forced. We don't force ourselves. No one can force us to say, oh, you have to practice this at this level of precepts, this advanced level of precepts, that this is, again, depending on one's affinity. Okay. The precepts is a demonstration of guarding the true self nature and ultimately promulgating the truth. Okay. Or spreading the truth. Okay. So, so it is, if we can be in control of ourselves, then we are protecting our true nature, our true self nature, right? And at the same time, we can actually, through our conduct, then we can also be expressing or demonstrating that truth. Okay, spreading that truth as well. Not necessarily having to talk about it, but of course that we can do that too. Of course, if we, again, this is where our actions should match what we're talking about as well. I mean, if we're talking about the truth as well, then we also need to be practicing it as well. Okay, so precepts has the connotation of not being stubborn and not trying to be different. Okay, so this also relates to that, I guess. Basically, the not being stubborn means how we applying the precepts, how we're practicing the precepts. Okay, so we shouldn't be stubborn. Like I said earlier, this precepts is not very rigid. Okay, I mean the principles are there, but the practice doesn't have to be very rigid, right? And so the stubbornness is the rigidity. We think, oh yeah, it has to be this way, right? This one particular method or way that you practice it. But actually, it depends on the situation, the circumstances. Okay, and then all right. So for example, there's an example, two examples. One example is there's this monk at one time, where there was this, okay, I don't remember the names, but, there's this bad guy. Okay. There was a bad guy, right? He went and he's going pillaging, killing, villages, and he goes to this one village where this monk is, and he's, goes to the monk. He says, I'm going to kill everyone in the village unless you sit down with me and eat some meat. Okay, because obviously the monk has taken a vegan vow, and they can't eat meat. Now, if you were just to follow the precept rigidly, then you say, well, the monk is going to refuse, say, hey, no, I took a vow, I can't, right? But the circumstance is that, well, if he didn't do it, then all the villagers would be killed. Okay, so what is he to do? Yeah, so he agrees. So he sits down and yes, he breaks his vow, but the villagers are saved. So in a sense, he sacrificed himself to save the villagers. So you might say, well, is there? So he he committed a grave sin for breaking his vow, but not really. It's not that simple, right? Cut and dry, black and white. So again, because he saved all those lives, so it's becomes a little bit different. Now, the second, the other one is that, grand predecessor, right? It's kind of similar, well, not that extreme, but similar situation, right? He was on a flight to another country, and there are a lot of, there's other transmitters and lecturers that accompanied him, on the plane. But on the plane, unfortunately, when they ordered, or it was too late for them to order the vegetarian meals. Okay, so they got the regular meal with the meat, and well, obviously they've also same thing. They made the vow not to eat any meat. And the thing is, okay, so everyone is kind of not sure what they're going to do. What should we do now? And they're looking at grand predecessor to see what he's going to do. And, so he just, okay, so let's just move aside this meat, and maybe there's some gravy, push it aside, and then he just eats the rice and vegetables. So that's being flexible. Okay. So that is not being rigid. And so basically, grand predecessor is showing that, hey, it's not so rigid, right? Now, the second part of this is not trying to be different. Yeah. So we also sometimes use, our precepts. So let's say, we're vegan or vegetarian, and unfortunately, we kind of, express that, with others in a way that seems like it causes, there to be a distance between us and them. Okay. So, and those who are not, vegetarian, for example. But, so if we're doing that, let's say, with, our family members, who are not vegan or vegetarian, or friends or coworkers, right? Then it's very hard to kind of, you can say, try to, get closer to them. I mean, if we want to try to ferry them ultimately, we created this artificial, gap or barrier between us. And so we shouldn't use precepts in that way, right? So there's flexibility here, that we should not, do that. Okay. All right. And then, all right. So the next one says precepts is a test of our ability to fulfill our basic duties and live a moral life of Tao. Okay. So, so basically, there's certain we have basic, duties to perform, and also the precepts, right? Are you can say are that basic level, of duties, that we can perform them, and to see if we can actually go beyond that and actually live a moral life of Tao, while we do that. So if we cannot perform or practice or, observe these precepts, then really it would be difficult to be able to live a life of Tao. Okay. So again, because this is like the foundation. Okay. If we don't do that. All right. So precepts is a key practice of realizing the Bodhisattva way and the Six Paramitas. All right. So again, it's another one of the keys. I mean, actually, they're all important, right? The Six Paramitas. It's not like one is more important than any of the other ones. Okay. So, all right. Okay. So Holy Teacher says, the heart and mind is the foundation of precepts and discipline, right? So again, it starts from the heart and mind, or the mind. Okay. So if the foundation is stable and we can stand firmly, then what is there to fear of hardships and slander? Okay. So Holy Teacher is saying that if our heart and mind, we are in control, right? It's basically having that discipline of the heart and mind. Then no matter what, happens around us, the difficulties that, we encounter, that others might cause us, or they might say things that, are bad, and not good for us. But yet that won't affect us. Okay. Everyone works together in the Tao affairs. Okay. So yeah, everyone works together. But cultivation and precepts, right, are individual matters. Okay. So again, this is something that no one can force us to do, to cultivate or to practice the precepts. And it's up to us individually to do it. Okay. So we have to kind of be self-motivated, really. We have to be self-motivated. And that's why understanding, the more we understand, the better, the more likely we will be motivated to be self-motivated and to be, take the initiative to cultivate, right? And to practice, right? Because again, nobody can force us. Since the beginning, Buddhas and saints did not attain the Tao either casually or by accident, right? So they didn't become Buddhas by accident. Okay. It was a lot of hard work. It was, a lot of that determination. Okay. All those qualities that we talked about earlier. They had to go through all that in order to achieve, right? And same thing. So if we want to achieve, we have to do the same. There's no other way, really. There really is no other way. There's no shortcut, right? Okay, so precepts discipline requires great skill and is our weakest aspect, as the Holy Teacher is saying. Okay, so because it should be maintained at all times, but we don't. Okay, so what Holy Teacher is seeing is that, we really have to put in that effort in the practice, okay, in this discipline. But it's really from Holy Teacher's view is that it's our weakest aspect in our cultivation because we aren't very disciplined. Okay. Or that maybe for a moment, for a very short time, we can be disciplined, but, we're not like that all the time. Okay. So that's what Holy Teacher is pointing out here. Okay. All right. Actually, okay. So, getting back to those 3 points that Holy Teacher mentioned earlier. Okay, so remember, he's telling them to eat the fruit, eat from the outside to the inside, and then eat it completely until you're left with the heart or the core. Okay, so again, it's saying that, we start from the surface and we work our way in. We want to realize what's inside. Okay, what's the truth of it? And then also the other aspect of that is from the physical, right, the form of the fruit. We eat it until it's completely gone. Well, in Chinese, what you're left with is the heart, okay, the core. But, so we can also imply that, it's talking about not just the core of the fruit, but all you're left with is that heart and mind, okay, that Buddha heart and mind. Okay, so once we've, gotten rid of attachments to these external forms, we're left with the formless heart and mind, okay, the Buddha nature. All right, so that's what he's trying to get, let us understand that that's what we have to get at is that, okay, not the forms, the external forms is not it. Okay, we have to look inside, right? Okay, let's see. Right, so it's just saying also, he had mentioned, Holy Teacher had mentioned that, okay, so just like when he channels, right, sometimes he channels as, Jigong Living Buddha, his incarnation of Jigong Living Buddha, or he channels maybe as, the 18th Patriarch, Tenan Buddha, okay, but he's saying that it's the same Buddha nature, the same essence, the same, you can say maybe the soul, okay, but the forms look different, okay, so, he's saying that, it's the same with us, right? Okay, so whether we are in the mundane, so that whether we are like in the mundane out in society or maybe at home or elsewhere, or we're in the holy, let's say, we're in the temple, or we're performing, propagating the Tao, right? We must maintain that heart and mind of discipline, right? Of the precepts. Okay, so no matter what the external situation or conditions or circumstance are, we always have to maintain that heart and mind of the precepts and the discipline. Okay. So, basically, the purpose, you could say, of these, is to kind of overcome negligent, disorderly, immoral, and excessive tendencies, having the discipline to let go of attachments and delusions, right? So ultimately to get to that inner formless truth, true nature, right? In the practice, okay, so there are all sorts of things, right? The 3 basic precepts: no harmful deeds, cultivate virtues, and to benefit sentient beings. The precepts of the body, speech, and mind, right? To subdue those 6 sense portals and roots. There's also the various temple rules and regulations, and also, like, for example, we take the vegetarian vow, right? So that's following the practicing precepts. But ultimately, it's really the external, and we start with the practice. When we start is kind of external, and the external, discipline, the moral discipline, and then gradually, hopefully, we bring it in, and it's also the internal moral discipline, so that we can ultimately realize our true nature, the Buddha nature, the Buddha within us. Okay. Okay. So I think that's it. All right. Sorry, I guess went a little bit over time. All right. If I had said anything wrong or not, well, I asked the Buddhas for forgiveness, and also for transmitting masters and everyone for their corrections. Thank you.